Good
Just got a
morning.
drink of my coffee,
That's
and I'm
just
like,
like,
oh, went down the wrong way.
gotta love when you inhale your coffee and just drown in it.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Nice. What's that all behind you there? Those like
A bunch of
water skis?
snowboards, and then
Snowboard.
just my Pilates equipment.
Nice.
We collect. My husband collects vintage snowboards. I got about, I don't know. We got over 100.
So cool.
Yeah. So it
I'm
makes
down
a
for
nice
anything
background.
vintage. Yeah, for real. Does he ever try and just ride them or?
Yeah, he used to ride them, and he since retired. He didn't ride all of them. He just since retired some of them, and they collects them from eBay. He used to ride them as a kid, and he goes, "I want to buy that board," and then he just collects them, and I just have them as backdrops for Zoom calls and teachings.
It's totally cool. Does he
Yeah, I
like
miss
trade?
the. What was that?
I was gonna say, does he trade them like comic books and stuff? I'm more interested in these snowboards right now than Pilates, actually. To
Oh,
tell you the
that's
truth.
fine. So I don't know if he trades them like comic books, but he collects them. They're kind of like nostalgic.
Yeah.
So, because he was big into snowboarding as a kid.
Hmm.
So, all of the boards that maybe were out of his price range that he couldn't afford as a kid that
Right.
came up on eBay, he'd buy them and like, this is the one I wanted when I was a kid. And got one of them,
Yes.
it's a crazy banana. It's super popular. And he goes, I couldn't afford that when I was a kid. So now I just buy it to look at it, to collect it, and hey, that's his thing. I totally love them. They're kind of cool to look at. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Plus snowboarding is pretty big in Colorado, and
Right.
you have vintage boards. People come up to you. It sparks a conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, he actually rides a vintage board. So
I think that's pretty cool.
it is pretty cool. I ride a newer one. I'd rather have newer technology than vintage, but that's just me.
Right. That totally segues into a classical versus contemporary Pilates dialogue, but that's fine.
Yeah, it does. I tried riding the classic board, but it just didn't have the curves and the
Mm,
waves and the nice little turns that the new board did.
mhm.
So
So, as a purist and your husband, would he be in the snowboarding community? Would he be respected for being able to ride a more difficult vintage board?
yep, he would. He
Nice.
posted a video of him riding his crazy banana, which is the board with the banana on it over here.
Okay, cool.
He has a bigger one. And they're like, "Oh my God, you're really riding that?" And he goes, "Yeah, I put new bindings on it. I got new boots and everything for it, and it actually works really well. You just gotta, wax it up." And everybody was just
Hmm.
his Facebook group like blew up that he was on, so that he posted the
Crazy.
video. So it was kind of cool.
Nice.
He was kind of
Not,
excited and stoked.
yeah, not unlike the Citizen LA loops there that I have on my vintage Gratz tower
Yeah,
on
the
the
little
left.
pink ones. I saw those the other day. I'm like,
Right
hey,
there.
guys can have pink,
They can
guys can
rock
wear
pink.
salmon, same thing. You got to add a little pop of color.
There you go. And it's
So,
new school, right? Like some bespoke loops on your old school equipment.
yeah, exactly. You got to have something new on there to make it a little blingy.
Sure. There you go. That's my bling. Too funny.
Hmm.
I don't even know where we're going with this conversation, but it's
I
good
don't
to
know.
have you.
The snowboards spark all conversations. Like, people ask
Yes.
me that all the time on Zoom, and then 10 minutes later, I'm like, all right, we got to start. We really got to start.
That's awesome. Yeah, so at the beginning, I was just talking about how, right? And just saying how
Yep.
Pilates is a means to something, is ease, whatever it is. So that kind of ties into our teaching as well, right? Where some people get into this game, so to speak, and be like, I want to be a Pilates teacher, or it's like,
Hmm.
or is it like, do you want to be a helper and you're going to use Pilates as a tool? And most people I'm sure would just nod yes to both, but like I think there's an intentionality of looking at I'm a helper and this is something I use to help, as opposed to I am a Pilates instructor.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with your story and on how and the why I got into personal training. One, to help people, to help them feel better about themselves, to help them gain their confidence so they could do something like maybe they weren't able to hike up a mountain, and now weight training helps them. And then getting into Pilates is just another way to help the client and have different tools in your toolbox versus just having one tool.
Yes.
Excuse me, do one particular thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Got lots of hearts for that comment. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, it's true, right? And then the other piece I've been, like Misty is talking about biases, right? Like we come at it, but then we have all these preconceived ideas and things about ourselves, about others, and then how do we continue to grow with that? And I think that a lot of that is just has to do with humility. Being able to say, okay, I was wrong there. Wow, I didn't see that. Yeah, you're right. That was slightly off, or I could have said that better. Really.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes I'm still new. I'm a new teacher compared to all of the seasoned professionals that you have on. So I don't always see things. My eye helps me out as a massage therapist. I can see more things than maybe the new teachers can, but there's still some things that I can't see, and then I'm hard on myself. I'm like, I'm like, you know what? I was wrong. Let's try this exercise. Maybe I shouldn't have done that. I'm thinking in my head, but
yes,
everybody makes those mistakes, and it's just being humble to not let them affect you, and then you just continue to chug along and you get better and you don't make those mistakes the next time.
Yes, I was wrong.
Exactly.
Let's all practice saying that one time. Like that's I was wrong. That was like it's funny, I had a client this morning and I set him up for knee stretches, and I wanted him to do down stretch. So so he started moving that way. I'm like, okay, no, those cues I just said were all wrong. Let's start over. Like I think we just, not that I'm the model of that, but I think we need to be in this place where we could be like, I was wrong, that was wrong, let's try it again. Like we are continuing to learn. That as much as taking a course, that demonstrates that we're always learning and we're always, willing to take, to make adjustments and not purport that we know everything.
Yeah, the mind sometimes you forget things. Like, I don't know, as being a new teacher, I can't always remember the order, like from level 1 to level 2 to 3. And, sometimes I just train the body in front of me, and I'm like, even though it's a level 2 exercise, you can do it. You're strong enough. And it's just giving myself permission to put that in when I think it's right, instead of maybe relying upon what the book may say, so to speak. It's going by experience, and it's just getting those little nuances and feeling your way around the studio, so to speak.
Absolutely. And feeling your way around the client relationship too. Right? As we build deeper relationships with people, then that also gives you the freedom to be like, what would happen if we did this?
And the trust,
there's a trust that's there, right? So I think that the better and the deeper we cultivate that relationship, the more freedom we have to say, like what you did, like, okay, this is a level 3 exercise, but this is our second week, and I think that your body will be able to do this. Let's give it a try, right? Like you don't have to go in that order when you have that relationship, that confidence in the body in front of you, and where you want to get them, that why of what they're trying to get to. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff there that we need. And obviously you coming from a massage background too, like you have experience in the helping profession to a degree that you're layering Pilates on. So I think that when someone is just coming in cold to the Pilates world, they need to understand that you can do that, but getting a base first, understanding your foundation, be able to explain the why of an exercise, all those things help to inform those courageous decisions to take someone off script into what they really, really need.
Yeah. Or adding in something from your background. It's nice having a wide variety of a background, like personal training and massage, because you can, or maybe physical therapy. You can pick and choose and add those things in, maybe at the end for the client, or in the middle of the lesson because they're just not getting it, and maybe this particular exercise will help them get it.
Yes.
So you kind of go sidetrack for a minute, and then you get back on track. So
Yes.
I mean, I think those things help versus just sticking to the script, so to speak.
Yes, that exactly. And whenever I take a class from any teacher, I'm not necessarily looking at, like, I'm there to learn and to move and to be challenged within my own body, but then I'm also listening for not their cues for exercises that we all know, but how do they set exercises up for that exercise? What tools do they have in their bag to get me to move in a certain way if I can't figure an exercise out? Where do they take me outside of, you know what I mean? Like those kind of things. And those are the things
How do they get you to do it? How do they get your body to move and connect your mind to it?
Yes. Right. So for those of you who are watching, sorry to cut you off there. Go ahead.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah. So that's just it. So I mean, that's a continuing value of being taught by different teachers and finding mentors and stuff. Is like, you know, how do you add to the breadth of the way that you teach, right, through all those things. So
that's why I like training with different people, whether it's virtual or in person. You get their cues on how they're watching your body and how they might say it differently.
Yep.
I think coming in, like working with new students, or I actually had a couple of guys I was working with. I was super excited about it because normally a lot of guys don't take Pilates, but they don't tend to like cues. So I'm sitting here trying to, like, all right, you know, the first lesson, I'm like, all right, bring your hands to a T and bring them to an I. And they're like, what? I'm like, all right. So I just get in there and help them move, or maybe touch them in a specific way underneath their hands so it keeps it up. And that seemed like, all right, a light bulb went off, because that seemed to work a lot better than just me telling you and then them trying to interpret it. I'm like, what is she saying?
Yeah.
So it's just a different way of learning how to work with them so they grasp, so they know what I want them to do, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if my brother's still in the chat here, but I remember him telling me when he was working as a physiotherapist assistant, there would be an exercise and, you know, let's call it just a shoulder retraction, right? So it just wrote shoulder retraction, and he'd teach a person how to do it. And then he'd say to them, okay, what do you want to call this exercise so that you can remember it for the next time?
Yeah. Okay.
And
So
call
it's
it
not, I mean, it's not, you know, in school they're like, make sure you call out the order. It's just sometimes you have to throw that stuff out, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense for people. I have one guy that calls the footwork the bicycle. And I'm like, hey, if it makes sense to you to remember it in your head, he's 80, sure, call it the bicycle.
Sure. Right.
You know, I'll try to remember that when you come in next time.
That's the part, right? I'm like, okay, it's now called a bendy arm pulley thing. Oh, gotcha. Right? Like, it's so funny. Like, that's exactly it. And as long as the people are moving and we're getting them to where we want them to get to, and then they can go into everyday life and just, well, they could end the session being like, thank you, that's what I needed today. And then they come back and say, hey, I did gardening all weekend. My back wasn't sore. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Done. Right?
It's just helping them with the everyday life and chores. I mean, it's not about them remembering the exercises. It's going to take forever. Not every client is going to want to learn the order. Not every client is going to have that memory. They're not going to, you know, you'll have some students that will, but I'm finding that they just come in to escape and move their body, and you're their memory. You help them remember what they're supposed to be doing. So
yeah. Well, one of my teachers in grade 10 or 11 was this guy. He was super, super smart teacher, and he was tough to learn from. I can't even remember how bad my mark was in that class, but he had this one line. I do remember this. He said, memorize nothing, understand everything.
That's a good one. That's so true.
Right? So our clients may not have the whole order memorized, but if they can understand where they're going, and like someone said the other day, like if you're in the middle of a class and you're teaching them and you're like, okay, what's next? And they start setting up for the next exercise, even though they don't know what's next, they understand it. It's in their body. So how can we get people to a place where they understand it, even if they don't understand that, even if they don't have it memorized, that this comes after this sort of thing?
Yeah. Because it's not always going to be this comes after this. What if that day you're seeing something in their body and like, no, we're going to add this in and then we'll do that. So it's it's not always by the book, so you can't always expect them to remember everything. But as long as they have that good foundation of,
Yeah.
you know, how their body is going to move and they understand things, that's
Yeah.
all you expect from that person.
For sure. I mean, and to give credit to the order, there's for from my perspective, the classical repertoire has a set order for a set reason. And
Mm-hmm.
if I was a sport conditioning specialist, I have a movement prep setting up an exercise. I see how the same way the Pilates order has a setup of the next exercise and everything. There's a thread that runs through all the exercises. So I'm fine with my clients owning the mat work because they can do that anywhere, anytime. So if they want to do the set 34 classical exercises in order and have that on lock, that's great. And then when they come in, then we can go all over the studio and explore what they need and all those things. But they have a baseline understanding of the work that is the launch pad for everything else. So I think that in my mind, that's the place of having a set order, so they could own the work as well, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to sound contradictory in all these things, but I think that there's a place for everything. But ultimately, when they have it in their body and understand it in their body, that's the bottom line for me.
Yeah, I agree. There's an order for the classical. I was trained classical. I like the order. I like having that base and that foundation. It's just getting them to do the work on their own. But when
Mm-hmm.
they come in, it's like you have this big playbook and you can go off
Mm-hmm.
book for an exercise and then get back on it. I totally agree, but
Yes.
that's the nice thing about the classical order. It's all laid out for you. You don't have to think about it. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
to guess why he did it. He just did it and it works fabulous. He was a brilliant man.
Yes. Yeah.
So
And then you have someone like Brent last week who actually
ah,
looked at
love that conversation.
the science of every single
Yes.
exercise. I mean, like, it's one thing for you and I to be like, okay, this is next. Why? Because it's next. And for him to be like, well, because this journal explains the, blah, 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 blah. I love all that stuff. I'll eat it up all day because it just makes so much sense to me too, right? Um,
I love the science behind it. It's like me taking all these extra anatomy classes and cadaver classes in school. People thought I was crazy. And I'm like, this is how your body moves. It's awesome to actually see a muscle move when you pull a string. I just
mhm.
thought it was the cat's meow, and I like the science behind it. I like the knowing the how, like you
Yeah,
said. I
yeah.
like to know how the body moves and why it moves that way. I find it fascinating.
Absolutely. Roots and Reach Pilates said, I love the concept of letting the client name the exercises. It also gives insight as to what their thought process is toward the movement. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Too funny. Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. And it doesn't always work. People, like, I've done it with people and they're like, let's call it the I hate this exercise. I'm like, mm,
Like the teaser. Yeah, nobody likes that one, but it's
yeah,
very beneficial for you. And
yes.
eventually, months later, they're like, "All right, I kind of like this exercise." I'm like, "See,
Yeah, right.
that's all I was trying to do is make you like it. I hope you
Yes.
like it someday."
Someday in this lifetime. For those who don't know who you are, Lisa, can you just like boast for a second about like what you do and your like all the different amazing things that you have going on?
Oh heavens, yes! I'm. For those of you that don't know me, most people don't. I'm Lisa Wolkerstorfer. I do Pilates, but first I was a personal trainer and I do Thai massage therapy. Lately, it's been
So
I
cool.
have more couples coming in for therapy because pandemic and everybody's wanting to learn how to work on each other at home. So I've been having a lot of those in-person classes with just one couple and having great results with that and having fun teaching people how to work on each other so they don't like kill their hands. So that's been enjoyable.
Amazing.
Classes
Yes.
for Pilates are hit or miss. Things are still kind of
Hmm.
iffy here in Denver.
Yes.
So even though things that are open, I
Yeah.
don't have any workshops going on. I'm more of a in person teacher than an online
Sure.
teacher. Sometimes I'll do the couples classes online. Not very often. People find it sometimes harder to learn that way. Some people find it easier to learn that way. It just depends on the couple that I have.
Yeah, right, exactly. And yeah, and if it's something that you're that passionate about, you would drive it, or if it just kind of goes organically, it'll just go organically, right? Like
Yeah, I never
there's no
know
blueprint.
what, what's going to happen when they come in. I can't play by a playbook because every couple's different. But if you have a wife that's 5 foot tall and a husband that's 6 foot, the same techniques are not going to work for both people. You got to train them independently. So it's
Yeah,
not like going off of a book where everybody's the same height and size type thing. So
right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so it's an interesting combination of skill sets, which I think is just fascinating. So
it's been growing over the years. It's, I'm never just stopping at one. I always want to learn more in the wellness field. It's the body's an amazing machine. Maybe next yoga, but who knows?
yeah, who knows? Awesome.
Who
Well,
knows what
thanks
happens?
thanks for
Thanks.
jumping on.
Yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
I love the surfboards, the snowboards in the background. That's so cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
I wish I could have like cars behind me in the background
I
while I'm
know,
doing
it'd be
this.
so cool. Put those little model cars on your wall with all your favorite childhood ones and just make a shelf of them.
Yeah, sure. I
Or
was talking
make
about
them
real
larger in
cars, but
life too.
yeah,
Larger
yeah,
in life,
exactly.
yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Yes, wow, it's so crazy. Like, thank you for joining me. Thanks for jumping on for
Hey,
just this
no
little chat.
problem.
And it's like 10:50 already, and I was gonna like, oh, I'll leave early today. It's just a freestyle. No one's
Oh,
gonna
I can
join
let you go.
this.
I was just out in the garden. Just I'm
It's
like, I
all
gotta
good.
clean up.
Awesome. Yes, no, thank you for jumping on.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
My
Hopefully you have a good
pleasure.
rest of your day and I'll let you go out and close everybody off. And
Awesome.
nice talking to everybody. Bye.
Yes. There you go. Thank you, Lisa. That was so fun. Um, yeah, so that's just reading through the comments here that Rich Pilates one about the naming the exercises is always fun to do with people, with newbies, with guys, my skeptics. Um, just reading through here. Great. Yan, so good to see you. Public Pilates, what's going on? Coach Robin, thanks for joining us today. All right, party people, we are back at it with Latoya on Thursday. Jennifer Hudson, the PR specialist, not the R&B artist, on Friday. Got to clarify that. And yeah, thank you for joining me today. Thanks for indulging me on my stories about Pilates is a how. Take care. See you guys tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Core Conversations is how we do.